good to see so many people made it back to the technology stage. We're gonna have a great opening by Didier ONGENA. On your program, he's still announced as the managing director for Microsoft over here in Belgium, but he moved up, and he's now at a VP level Europe for the public markets, I believe. So I would like to invite you on stage. I'll give you the clicker, and you have the time that was allocated. So go ahead, you have it over there, counting down.
Thank you. Thanks for welcoming me here in the room and also in your living room at home. What I wanted to talk about a little bit today is how Microsoft is thinking about helping and supporting building the metaverse. And so I've kind of split this presentation in 3 pieces. Hopefully I'll get to the third one, that's the challenge. And that's really talking a little bit about the metaverse, talking about what we're doing about the metaverse, and then leave you with some thoughts about how the financial services industry could have a role in the metaverse. And at first, obviously, when we're looking at social trends and how people are talking about the metaverse is a topic of the day. The slide that you're seeing here is really about social signals about the metaverse, and you see them really spiking when a certain company and a certain creator of that company announced that he would change his name into Meta. But that kind of global attention is also sparked a lot of local attention with some of our leading newspapers talking about the metaverse here in Belgium. And so each week I'm trying to talk about the metaverse. I need to come up with new things because obviously it's sparking so much debate. And to be honest, there are a couple of reasons why it's interesting to discuss the metaverse. I've circled in red the things that are kind of the most important things. Goldman Sachs talking about an $8 trillion opportunity. Bloomberg talking about an opportunity that is 2.7 times the gaming opportunity, which, just for you to remember, is about a 225 billion addressable markets. Gartner saying that by 2026, 25% of the population will spend an hour on the metaverse. And obviously already some metaverse platforms, especially in the gaming space, that are already looking at millions of users, 100 millions of users. To be honest, Microsoft is also contributing to the hype. We have some of our senior leaderships. Here you're seeing Satya, our CEO, talking about the metaverse and our intentions in the metaverse. And yet, I also want to make sure that you understand it's only one of the topics. There are actually 3 things that are interesting on this slide. First, and that's a technology slide that we are using when we have done our last technology event for our partners. There are 3 things that are important on this slide. First, the metaverse is on the slide. 2, the metaverse is only one of 10 subjects that is on the slide. And 3, everything that is on the slide is something that we expect to have a material impact on our business in the coming 12 to 18 months. So it's more short-term than what you might really think. And yet, the metaverse is not new. The term metaverse was coined about 30 years ago in the famous novel Snow Crash. It got its first life in Second Life about 20 years ago. It also got a first spike when Roblox was created and IPO'd in 2006. And then obviously it got that kind of quite interesting vibe when actually Travis Scott and Marshmello did that kind of live gig in Fortnite, a game that my kids at least are playing, where actually 30 million people were looking at or experiencing something together at the same time. And then obviously, last but not least, what I mentioned earlier on Facebook changing its name. Now, why now? Well, the why now is that the metaverse actually is not a technology, it's not a standard, it's more kind of a concept, and a concept that is requiring a number of technologies coming together. And the technologies that need to come together are at a stage of maturity where we can really think about building some metaverse experiences. And some of those technologies are mentioned on this slide, and each of those are getting to some level of maturity, even if the level of maturity is still different. And at the same time, very clearly, the metaverse is still under construction. So the next thing I try to do is like, hey, what is the metaverse? How can we define the metaverse? And I think there are different ways to think about the metaverse or to define the metaverse. And I kind of wanted to highlight, let's say, 2 things. First, through the characteristics. It's decentral, it's present, if you are there or not, it's persistent. There is also a metaverse economy. There is a digital economy associated to that. It's real time, it's a synchronous thing. So those are a couple of those characteristics that are quite important. From a use case perspective, we're actually seeing two big use cases emerging. One is about how we are collaborating together, how we are exchanging together, how we are actually behaving and being together in a different experience. That's kind of one definition. And the second piece is how do we kind of improve and create better experiences with physical objects or physical environments. And so those are probably kind of a couple of blocks that would define the metaverse. So now what are we going to do in the metaverse? And if you think about it, we have actually 4 big elements or 4 big pushes in the metaverse. The first one is on the consumer, and specifically in that space on the marketplaces and the gaming. You've heard that we have kind of done an acquisition bit on Activision, pending regulatory review, that is really helping us to build those kind of competencies and capabilities. That's kind of the consumer space. The second pillar, and I will talk about that pillar in a moment, is the metaverse in the enterprise space. Obviously, when you're talking about working together, collaborating together, being together, sharing experiences together, you're obviously thinking about one of our core businesses, and so we really want to see how that metaverse can really change how we're envisioning some of the collaboration tools. And then last but not least, it's actually also the industrial metaverse, is making sure that we're building those digital capabilities of physical objects, physical environments, and so that we can do more with those. And then obviously last but not least is all of the tools, all of the infrastructure that you need. The purpose of this slide is not that you go through each of, or that I go through each of those layers, but it's just to give you a sense of the number of technologies, the number of things that are already existing and that we're bringing to market for people to work with and to build some of those metaverse experiences. So let me quickly zoom in 2 examples. And the first one is actually the metaverse for the enterprise. One of the things that we are really focused on is in this kind of new environment, in this new hybrid work, is how are we experiencing things together? How are we collaborating in a different way? So how do we feel that presence? How do we make sure that we have those joint experiences? And how do we make sure that we connect from everywhere, but truly connect from everywhere in a seamless way where there are no differences between if you're in a meeting room or if you're somewhere else? And what we have done for that is launch what we call Mesh. And Mesh, as always at Microsoft, it's both kind of a first-party solution and a third-party solution. What we mean by third-party solution is that we're building those kind of components, technology components, that allow people, that allow technologies, that allow application providers and application builders to build their own experiences. And we have kind of categorized this in actually 4 building blocks about immersive presence, about building spatial maps, holographic presence and rendering, and kind of that synchronization, that multi-sync synchronization that is so important. And so we're providing those building blocks to application providers to build their own applications, embedding those technologies, but we're also using this to build or to actually extend our own applications, for instance, Teams as one of the examples. And so what you will start to have as experience is what I'm kind of showing here in those slides, is kind of avatar and virtual experiences, people coming together in rooms, and you can access those rooms either through traditional technologies, through your phone, your PCs, but also through virtual reality technicians. That is an example of a physical person that is having a meeting together with an avatar and with an holographic representation of a person. Those are the types of scenarios that we're thinking about in terms of the enterprise metaverse. And I have a couple of other examples that are showing different variations of that same reality. But as important for us is actually what we can do in the metaverse for industry. There is that idea that if you create kind of a digital copy, a digital twin of a physical object or a physical environment, you can start to understand that environment. You can start to build simulations on that environment, and you can start to kind of have a real-time interaction with those environments. And that certainly allows you to do stuff that you can't do in a physical world. For instance, we have companies that start to build a digital twin of chemistry process and start to make simulations on that chemistry process so that they don't have to go through all of the pain in doing that in the real world. It's also kind of a more sustainable way to think about developing assets. Same thing for drugs discovery, same thing for new industrial processes. You're kind of building that kind of digital twin of that physical reality. I'm a bit short of time, so I'll skip this one, but one great example is actually what we're doing with AB InBev, where we are actually building a digital twin of their entire industry. So if I have 30 seconds more, what does it mean for the financial services industry? Well, in our opinion, actually 3 types of things. First, how you change the core process within the financial services industry, people onboarding, interaction with customers, but also using 3D virtualizations to build new risk models and to think about the risk in a different way. The second piece is how do you participate in that digital economy? How do you kind of tokenize some assets? How do you, are you lending against NFTs? Are you using NFTs or accepting NFTs as collateral? So how do you participate in that kind of digital environment? And the last piece is when you think about this, as we are moving kind of more from a capitalistic world to kind of a data-driven world, is how is the financial services industry also thinking about data and thinking about the value of data and the exchange of data and participating in facilitating that data. So that's a 1-hour presentation summarized in 10 minutes. Thank you very much for your attention.
Wine to thank you.
Thank you
to
so
share
much.
with your new European colleagues.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next speaker is from Euroclear. He's the group CIO. His name is Michal PAPROCKI. You can already come over here. And when we talk about Euroclear, we often reference to them as like one of the very first FinTech scale-ups that were born out of Brussels, and to also show the huge talent pool of over 2,000 employees that you still have here. So we look forward to hearing what you bring us from the Euroclear perspective.
And I very much love the presentation of my predecessor Didier about Metaverse. So I'm going to tell you a story about a company that is quite traditional and still could do something spectacular with the bleeding edge technologies. Because if the summit is about digital transformation, let's give it a start. So the starting point, it's actually that we are a large, systematically important company. So the 3 figures that you see on the screen. So first one, it says, what are the assets under custody? So at each point of time, we have 36 trillion of assets under our custody. And our foremost obligation is to make sure that they are always secure. So you could imagine the defense mechanisms that we are having. You can imagine the regulatory framework. You could imagine like the cybersecurity approach, all the procedures, how to run that in a safe way. And then we are actually pushing quite a lot of money for the global economy. So the second figure is 1 quadrillion. It's with a 15 zeros. So that is the amount of money that we are responsible for to execute the settlement instructions. You could think about us pushing GDP of Belgium each day before the lunchtime. So we do that actually twice every day. So again, that tells you about like the systematic importance of a big financial institution. And then 7 seconds. So it's actually 7 seconds that throughout the world there is something of systematic importance for the financial markets. So there's a deadline that we cannot miss. So now you could feel into my role as a group CIO that you need to maintain a flawless execution and a flawless orchestration of a system that is very mature and again, very conservative or risk averse by nature. Because again, our obligation is to make it safe no matter what. And then we come with quite a spectacular new business strategy that was just endorsed in March. And this strategy basically says, okay, we are quite flawless in execution when it comes to transaction type of business. So we are quite good to protect the assets, and we are quite flawless to execute on the transactions, but we could do much more than that. The way we position ourselves is we are a bit of like Facebook of the financial markets. So in between the issuers of debt, which could be the nation states, which could be the corporations, and investors that are looking for a good and secure opportunity to invest into that. So how about we are turning into more platform economy, perhaps not Metaverse yet, but it's coming close, and we could sell insights. So we'd like to think about ourselves as an open data sharing platform. You see quite a big change from the sumo player into a caliber bird. How do we do that? So first of all comes the realization that in fact we are a technology organization. So of course we are a financial institution heavily regulated here in Belgium, but also by 7 other regulators that I'm interacting with on a regular basis. But as a matter of fact, half of the people working for Euroclear are already part of the technology organization and growing, because the more digital we are going, the more we are automating our operations, the more you could see share of IT growing, both in terms of percentage of cost and number of people involved. Then when we defined our strategy, we said, okay, we have 2 fundamental enablers to make it happen. So it's people and technology. And actually the intersection of that, it's actually what we are managing on a daily basis. So technology part means that we would like to create more technology assets to enable the digital strategy. So again, from processing and storing the data into sharing and selling some intelligence, some insights into how you could improve your liquidity, your risk management, your pricing strategy. And then last but not least, and that is the privilege of a big, more incumbent type of players as opposed to fintechs, is that we really have customers around us, and it's been 50 years of quite a spectacular growth, so we are aware of what are the real market issues. And markets are usually going for efficiency in the sense that something is cumbersome. It requires a lot of mundane steps that are very often labor intensive and hence prone to errors. Or perhaps there are some inefficiencies in handling data, so as a result something is expensive. It could be just more optimal. And then my story is about DFMI, so decentralized finance. And one of the responses that we have taken, and that is quite spectacular. Again, if you think about this large market player, our time to market is normally 2-3 years from the ideation to deploying a solution, because it needs to be thoroughly tested, because it requires a lot of complexity, because you need to tap into all the existing systems, the payments, the stock exchanges, the clearing houses, the big custodian banks. So in the story of DFMI, we thought, okay, how about we deploy bleeding edge technology that would actually help us to transform? So instead of revising what we have existing, we could disrupt ourselves. So if we're in the middle of the capital market, again, in between the issuers and the investors, one could say, okay, how about we throw blockchain technology in the meantime, which would be permission-based. We could operate that. But then that technology could actually replace a lot of manual steps and a lot of current processes. And that is what we call DFMI. And we go bleeding edge. So instead of putting that on the current systems, which are predominantly mainframes of this world, we could go into the cloud. And perhaps we use one of the partners that are available in this room. And then we say, okay, let's take a look at what is the most mature blockchain technology. Not like proof of work Bitcoin style that is not energy efficient, and then I couldn't be participating in the ESG panel, but we could go for proof of stake or proof of authority, so something that is very efficient to do so. But again, we put native blockchain on native cloud solution. And then the idea actually popped up and was founded in January this year, and we are going live in terms of starting customer testing next month. So then you see a delivery of 10, 11 months instead of usual 2 or 3 years. And we also cut that into small chunks. So we are at the same time onboarding agile way of working, which means that instead of going fully fledged with a big solution, we're cutting that into minimum viable product because we would like to fail fast. Perhaps the idea that we are working on, it's not optimal. I hope it is. But we'd like to put the first product, which in our case, it's a pre-issuance of securities. So in order to create a new bond that we could invest into, it actually takes no less than 100 steps to create that. So a lot of paperwork, a lot of regulatory, a lot of legal work, a lot of operations. And you can actually automate all of that with smart contracts. And again, by doing so, in a way, you could think that we are jumping ahead and disrupting our own business model, our own operations. But hey, what we call digital transformation, it's actually that we are transforming ourselves and jumping to the next model that perhaps what we are doing right now would be delivered in a totally new way. And that was my story for today that I wanted to share with you. Thank you.
Big thanks for sharing that story. And I don't know if you've all noticed, but a corporate striving to fail fast, this is something new that was unimaginable a decade ago. So I really think, yeah, that what startups typically used to do, build MVPs, go out, and if it doesn't work, go to the next one.
Indeed.
Quite impressive that you're there, so keep going.
Thank you.
For that. And the bottle of wine is being handed to you as you come down the stairs. Our next speaker is David COX. He's with Mastercard, and he's the head of the EU Cyber Resilience Center. So, as you all know, you're in the technology track. You've had your fair amount of Gartner terms of the cool things you should be adopting, and you're going to be adding a few to that, right? Hopefully. Go ahead. The mic is not on yet, but I'm sure you're working on it.
Hello, everybody. Yeah,
now we hear you.
That's
Go
fantastic.
ahead.
Well, I'm going to break with tradition and stand over at this side. It's great to be here. It's great to see so many people in 3D rather than just on four walls of a screen that I'm used to seeing at home or in the office. So I'm David COX. I'm the head of Mastercard European Cyber Resilience Center, and it's great to see you all today. So I'm briefly going to talk about cyber resilience and public-private partnerships and what we're doing within Mastercard, and particularly the European Cyber Resilience Center and some of the threats that we're seeing at the moment. So we see and we know that cybercrime and that the cost of cybercrime is just increasing every day. And that's just not just the actual cost of the crime itself, but the ability for us to defend ourselves against that. And we're also seeing the average cost of cyber breaches increasing. And again, that's not just the breach itself and being able to repair from systems that have been compromised. That's also the loss in share price as consumer confidence deteriorates, and also the fact that I've lost my train of thought straight away there. That we know that the consumer price deteriorates, and then we must then, and then there's obviously the regulatory fines that may come as a result of that. Sorry for missing that out there. So we know that things are increasing. And at Mastercard, we know that we can't stand still. We know that we can't just look at the threats of today. We need to look at the threats of tomorrow. So what we do is we look to anticipate what new threats are there, be that through criminal innovation, technology, or through the advances in both of those. We also must not forget to look behind us, because long-standing vulnerabilities persist despite our best efforts and our collective best efforts. Those threats of yesterday will remain relevant today and will continue to challenge us tomorrow. It will come as no surprise to many of us in the room that phishing maintains its reign as the most significant point of entry into our systems and into everybody's systems for the introduction of malware. And cybercrime and cybercriminals know this, and what they do is try to exploit the fears of individuals. And we saw that particularly through the coronavirus pandemic, with them using those laws to get our employees to try and take the bait and click on a link. And our employees are the guardians of our network and the guardians of our galaxies, really. So we must do everything that we can to make sure that they have the right skills, technology, and knowledge to be able to not take that bait and click on that link. Through our fantastic phishing programs throughout Mastercard, using real-world examples to make sure that our employees are best served to stop that from happening. We also see crime as a service and crime as a business service model expanding. That's something that's new, and cybercriminals are really working together on this. They're now buying access to systems that are already compromised, or buying access to tools that are on the dark market to be able to break into computer systems and to our networks. And this really is lowering the barrier of entry into cybercrime and causing a real-world problem. They're working together, and as they work together, we must also work together to combat them. We're seeing ransomware and the evolution of ransomware continue. Attackers are not just looking to go into systems, put ransomware on and wait for ransomware to be paid. They're now evolving and making sure that they take data away from systems before they encrypt them, which makes it more possible for them to blackmail businesses and blackmail individuals to make sure that a ransomware is paid. We're also seeing, because of the lower barrier to entry, a lot of ransomware individuals now using basic source code to create their own ransomware. But what they're doing is they're forgetting to actually put a ransomware note onto the system, which, if a business makes a decision to actually pay a ransomware, makes it even more difficult to get your data back, because there is no way of actually paying a ransomware and moving on from that. Mastercard partners with Europol and No More Ransomware, but not every ransomware has a solution, so it really is a huge problem, and probably still the most financially damaging form of malware and ransomware out there. We're also seeing the scale and speed of attacks increasing with attack automation, speed in computation, and communications also increasing, particularly with the adoption of cloud technologies. Now, we're seeing a massive scale and jump there. So what are we doing about it? We know that cyber criminals are becoming more audacious, and they're shifting their focus to larger, more profitable targets. So we need to be equally as audacious and meet those challenges head on. And that really was the catalyst for building the Mastercard European Cyber Resilience Centre, based in Belgium, the heart of Europe. So to answer the top concerns of government, policymakers, and regulators, it really has been built to protect our network, customers, and consumers from harm through the strengthening of regulatory collaboration and enhancing resilience across the region, with a long-term vision to become a centre of excellence that protects people, property, and business. It has a number of departments from Mastercard coming together under one roof within Belgium to really enhance our threat intelligence picture and to enable a speedier, better response to protect our network. Because we know that by working together, we will enhance our collective defense, which will give us security and unity. We know that the bad guys are doing it, the criminals are doing it, we must also do the same with our partners. So when I set up the European Cyber Resilience Centre, I set 4 core objectives, and those are the 4 Ps. And as you can see, they are to prepare, prevent, protect, and pursue. The first one is all about prepare, and that's strengthening relationships, building those relationships within Europe. We also are looking to build capacity and capability, so having the Security Operations Centre within Europe for the first time, having a Security Investigations Lab, really building that capacity, and then building the capability as well through testing, incident management training, and awareness to really sharpen and enhance our responses. The next 2 Ps really run together, and they are the prevention and detection of threats and the mitigation and limitation of cyber breaches. As I said, we've got embeds within our Security Operations Centre, but we also work closely with our Fusion Centre over in the States to have a follow-the-sun model to security, incident, and management to really accelerate our responses. And then the final P is to pursue, and that's really about sharing threat intelligence and enhancing situational awareness. Using the information that we get from the previous 3 Ps, any indicators of compromise that we have, any threats that we're seeing, strengthening collaboration, and really sharing that with our partners to ensure that we really do enhance and enable continuous learning across Europe. So the ECRC brings a number of benefits. It provides a real true headquarters for cyber resilience within Europe. It provides our benefits to payment sovereignty within Europe and is integral to the payment industry within Europe. It also is a single point of contact for our partners, providing growth and resilience within Europe. I'll just quickly touch on a couple of case studies that we did within the ECRC, and they really build on the 4 Ps objectives that we've already set out. And the first one is the pursue angle, and that was working with Europol, our partners in Visa and Amex, also to receive compromised card data that was seen on the dark web and on the dark markets. We received a significant amount of data. We've done this over the last 2 years, so to 2021 and 2022. We received a significant amount of data and shared that across partners within Mastercard. Of that, we were then able to share that with our customers and give intelligence back to law enforcement. And in 2021, Europol published that we saved around about 40 million euros in card data. We received significant praise from Europol for this, and from that we signed a memorandum of understanding with them, and it really does go to demonstrate our commitment to Europe and European law enforcement. And then the final one I wanted to quickly touch on was about improving resilience, and this goes to our prepare objective, and this is in relation to exercise Lock Shields. And if you've not heard of Lock Shields, it's the most complex live fire defense exercise in the world. It's run from Estonia each year, and in 2021, along with red teaming, they decided to include a financial element to the strategic track part of the exercise. And this was the first time that this was done in 2021. We were invited along with partners in FS Isaac and other financial institutions to really provide challenging injects and scenarios to those countries to make sure that they knew what to do, when to do it, and how to do it should there be a problem and issues arise. It really was about providing excellent public-private coordination and collaboration. We had some great press from it through the Wall Street Journal with our Chief Security Officer, Ron Green, giving a presentation and a speech to that. And that's really it from me. I think the key part is that we need to have security and unity. We need to work together, we need to collaborate, because if the baddies are doing it, we need to do it as well. And that's it from me, thank you.
Big thanks. Also for respecting time so well and keeping the pace in it. So big thanks. Our next speaker is Marijke VERHAVERT. She's working for Living Tomorrow, an organization which is building ecosystems for corporates that want to innovate and collaborate with others. And she promised me that she will be talking about the marathon, the long perspective, right? And how to deliver that. So you have for the playing the long, the clicker is there, and your slides are appearing.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for letting me speak here. I'm very excited at this great conference. I am indeed Marijke from Living Tomorrow, and those in the room that have my age and are living in Flanders certainly know Living Tomorrow as the Huis of de Toekomst, or the House of the Future, established in 1995 already with a B2C business model, but now in the last years evolved to a B2B business model as an ecosystem of innovating companies working together and creating innovation together. Me, myself, I work for Living Tomorrow, but I work for a specific organization in Living Tomorrow, Tomorrow Lab. I'm the practice leader of digitalization, and I'm happy to tell you about what we are doing, indeed, helping companies playing the long game. And to play the long game is really very important in these digital disruption times, because disruption is knocking at every door. No sector is immune, and the big tech giants, they know how to introduce in markets they have never been before, and they know also how to scale up very fast. And next to that, most of the organizations are managing their risks looking in the wrong places. A study of Harvard Business Review that was following companies for more than 10 years looked to the companies and which proportion of time they spent on managing risks. And they found out that most companies are managing risks on financial reporting, also on legal and compliance and operations, and then also a little bit on strategy. Whereas in the same study, they look at where are the significant value losses of companies when tackling risks and not having risk in a good management. It's the other way around. The value losses are not in financial reporting, not in legal and compliance, and not in operations. The value losses are there because companies do not know how to manage their strategy. And this is also seen in graphs about the lists of the biggest 500 companies in the world, where you have at the right side of the slides the fallers and the doomed companies that don't get in the list anymore after 5, 10, 25 years. This is a graph starting from 1995 until 2020, so 25 years, and a lot of companies do not stay in this list. There are also risers and new arrivals, but what is very interesting in this graph are the mainstays, because there are companies that know how to play the long game. There are companies that can get huge revenues and huge profits and just stay there. And so the big question is, how do the mainstays survive? And that's indeed what we in Tomorrow Lab do with companies. we try to help companies to play the long game, to adapt. And for us, there are 4 key ingredients to do that. First, future foresight. Second, taking the insights of the future foresight to make a future-proof strategy. Third, innovation, but innovation culture to reach the goals of this strategy. And then with these 3 basic foundations, companies really can make ecosystems that are future-proof and stable, connecting. I will talk in this small 10 minutes on this future foresight. I cannot tell you all, but we get a lot of questions on what is future foresight about. And Tomorrow Lab is one of the only players in Belgium who has more than 10 years experience in future foresight. So let me first tell you what it is not. A lot of people looking at the future, they tend to extrapolate what they know now. So they look around them and they see a lot of things coming on. And when they imagine how the future will look like, they just make an extrapolation. And this can work when you look over 3 years' time, 4 years, maybe 5 years' time. But it will not work when you look 10 years, 20 years ahead. And future foresight is really looking in a long-term perspective. Why is it not working? Because there are so many uncertainties that you cannot predict the future anymore. A lot of things will happen, and how 2040 will look like, we don't know. So there's a methodology for that. It is called scenario planning, to look into the future and to try not to predict the future, but to explore the future. And future scenario planning is not about this expected future. It's also not about what is then feasible in the future, because we live in disruptive times and we have to stretch ourselves. So just thinking about the future a little bit more feasible, a little more stretch as what you expect, is really not what future foresight and scenario planning is about. It's about looking at plausible but extreme possibilities, the possible future. And to grasp that, the scenario planning technique makes 4 scenarios, 4 very distinct opposite scenarios with extreme plausibilities. And in these scenarios, companies, the board of directors, but also teams or maybe the partners of your ecosystem can really visualize the future and try to understand, build understanding, and then from that point of view, take actions. That's an all other way around that a lot of people do, not thinking of what is happening today and what will my strategy be, but look ahead, doing a future foresight exercise, and then coming back and know what you should do or what your options are. So this is an example of a future foresight scenario of an air controller where you see 2 main uncertainties, the growing demand for air mobility and the stagnating or maybe decreasing demand versus the high or the less fragmentation in Europe. And for instance, the scenario left below was a scenario that was not loved by the people. The board of directors didn't want to talk about it. They said stagnating or even decreasing the amount of air traffic. It will not happen in this Europe that is so fragmented. And then there was COVID. So you see, in these disruption times, a lot of things happened, and we make really these scenarios extreme but plausible so that companies talk about it with each other and understand what can happen. Why do we do that? Because the board of directors have to make actions and to make decisions on new services that will disrupt themselves. So the air control, working in the higher air control, they built now a new company for doing the urban control and accepting drones in the air. And sports organizations, they embrace the facilitating of the VR sports. Or a traditional oil company just set up services for electric vehicles. And they didn't do it in 2019. No, they were ready in 2019 because they started before. In 2016, everything was set up to be there in the time. So how do we do that, making future scenarios? We do it by using an outside-in technique. So we bring the outside world into the company. For instance, you're a company and you have your transactional environment. This is not outside in, this is you. This is your ecosystem, this is what you know your customers, you know your competitors, etc. Outside in means that we go around this and we look at the contextual environment. We look at what's happening on political level, legislation level, ecological level, etc. And we see how this is driving your transactional ecosystem. For instance, a lot of drivers on these slides, autonomous, embedded, etc. All these drivers, we are going to analyze it, look how uncertain they are, how impactful they are on your business, and then, very short, we have again four future worlds for the FinTech, where you see on one hand centralized financial environment, decentralized environment, highly autonomous or low autonomy. And in these scenarios, we start the storytelling. Not just because we like storytelling, but because we used experts from this contextual environment, expertise that we bring in and where we make these plausible scenarios. So are you then prepared for the future? Are you then prepared for disruption having these scenarios? It's not only having scenarios, it's about being a company that has a transformation process in the house, starting, looking from today, then going back or further to the future, where you make your scenarios, then making your choices, your options, your insights, then you have a future-proof vision, and at last, your process ends, because now you have a future-proof strategy that can enable you to play the long game. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Marijke, for all these insights. I hope you all listened well and are future-proofing your companies. I have a bottle of wine waiting for you right over there. We have a panel coming up and right on time, so that's great too. And we have Rik COECKELBERGS. I will invite you on stage. And for the people doing the light, make sure there's enough light on his tablet because it's e-ink paper. He will be sitting over there, so go ahead. We were talking about collaboration. The banking scene is another event. End of the month, what's the date?
October 25.
October 25. So for those in the banking and that want to go to more events, welcome at yours too. And this is a sort of collaboration that we believe that everybody will get better if the sea level rise and all the boats go up, right?
Thanks a lot, Toon.
I'll let you introduce the panelists.
Thank you. This is the last panel of the day, and I was asked to talk about technology and resilience. And after having a chat with all our panelists, I decided to look at the future. I didn't know about the presentation before me, so we're going to look at how the future might look like instead of how the future will look like in terms of technology, and more importantly, what the impact will be for society. What are the things we should be careful for in letting technology build a more resilient society. And for that, I would like to invite all our panelists here on stage as well. First one is Ioana. She's the Chief Innovation Officer of Swash, a data monetization platform, and as they call it, the most consolidated data union in Web3. Pascal AERENS, he's the co-founder and Chief Product Officer at Neterium, business strategist with 20 years of experience in financial crime compliance and closely involved in the development of many sanction screening solutions. Next we have David COX. We all know him by now. What he didn't tell you is that he has 20 years experience in law enforcement with a lot of experience also in the National Crime Agency in the UK. And last but not least, we have Syrah MOHAIDEEN, and I hope I pronounced the name well. Syrah, my apologies. She's a client technology strategist at Microsoft with a focus on financial services, helping customers with their digital transformation and business development. As you will see throughout the questions, we will get closer and closer to that 10-year future. But first, we're going to start at where we are today. Pascal, looking at today, aside from ESG, most tech discussions today are about real-time and interconnectivity of organizations. People expect instant services and, most importantly, probably, zero mistakes. I can clearly see the advantage of that. You contribute to this with Neterium with an easy-to-use RegTech solution. We're not going to talk about that too much, of course. That's not what the people are for there. You have a website for that. But in our call, you also spoke about the importance of ethics in your business model. And that is something that is, I think, very interesting, especially when we talk about the resilience exercise, technology, and what it can bring for society. So can you tell a bit more about that, please?
Yeah, sure. Okay, it's working. Yeah, just for people not knowing what we do, so we are a real-time API screening for sanctions in transactions and KYC. So obviously, in that business, we are sent by definition personal information, sometimes very sensitive information about financial transactions or about people. So a lot of information about personal information about people. And as a European business, we wanted to take specific positioning on that part. And we thought about the fact that how are we going to store that information in a secure way? Because it's obviously very sensitive in terms of GDPR and so on. So we decided at the end to take a very radical approach to not store anything. So of course, this brought us to a discussion about how are we able to, do what we are supposed to do without storing anything. And of course, there is a whole aspect of AI. AI is very critical in our business. And of course, AI is fed by a lot of data.
And that also brings us to interpretation of what you stored or didn't store.
Yes, exactly. So therefore, we have to be extremely careful about anything from from bias on the models that we implement, of course, and also the fact that these models, they by definition, we have to improve the quality of the service by playing on data. So although in GDPR compliance is an exception, I mean, a lot of people don't know that, but there is a section C, I think, in Article 6 of GDPR that says basically it's okay to take your personal data if it's for being compliant with the law. Okay, but we wanted to do the extra mile and to say, okay, we are going to store absolutely nothing, and so to perform this whole function without storing nothing. So that, of course, made us create, synthetic data, use metadata, every data that is around the data itself.
Yeah.
But all the decisions we take then are taken without using personal data, and that's really significant.
Yeah, of course. Syrah, that is, AML and KYC, don't have to explain, for financial industry, quite important these days. But we are here at a FinTech event, so we cannot ignore a few other operational risks for the financial services industry. And one is the search for talent. Today, like the age pyramids are not in favor of banks these days. They urgently need to find new and younger talent. And I think looking at AML, KYC, but also looking at this, probably there is a solution that can help with both of these things. And I want to ask you, are financial institutions sufficiently appreciating what intelligent automation can mean in that respect?
It's a great question. So from this morning, I've been hearing a lot about open data, open finance. It gives a lot of hope. But today, if you see the fact, 82% of financial institutions have their no data foundation straight. So that's everybody in the room would acknowledge that. And even 73% who are having their data foundation straight, bit struggling to get an ROI out of it. So it's a bit of a challenge in the financial institutions. But so from technology perspective, there are some buckets. There's really automation there. Financial crime, there's quite some automation happening. But if you really deep dive from technology perspective, you have AI, ML, and even if you have your data straight, and if you have your foundation straight, and machine language environment straight, the real ROI is going to come when you're going to look into your complete data value chain. So you have to look into your data value chain and see how will you get all the insights and incorporate into your processes. That's super important. Otherwise, it's going to be a challenge. So you have to bring that at a scale, which means that you have to have intelligent infused processes. It sounds fiction, but that's where you will bring a scale to the industry. So the one thing, but I think today, if you see financial institutions are really in efficiency pressure, profitability pressure, and recession is not helping. So technology is there. We are at the point, we have the data, so we have to get this foundation straight and get the automation up to date. And some of the areas because
I think it also goes beyond efficiency. The moment that banks cannot find the right talent, it's also a matter of operational risk that needs to be covered. And if you can have technology that can help them with the mundane tasks to replace those people already, that's already part of the solution covered. On top of that, if we talk about ESG, it's always about the E, but the G is as important. We spoke about ethics, the S as well, and treating your people well. With intelligent automation, you can make those people evolve to more value-adding services where they can feel more appreciated within the organization because it's not, again, the same task over and over again.
Exactly. I think that's why now technology is there. So you can really help people with those technologies to bring really value and value-added services to the market. So there are a couple of areas that we really think from customer experience perspective, employee experience, you can really enhance it, and operational excellence. And there are a couple of examples. Lending and loaning will be a very profitable business for banks because of the rising interest rate. And it's quite that you can bring automation. For one of the examples, one of the Nordic companies, they wanted to really bring added value services for the solopreneurs or entrepreneurs which are solo. What they did is they tried to do it in a normal way, but they could not bring 7% of accuracy in their default prediction. So if you introduce really in your complete processes using a complex Miller algorithm, using data from inside and outside, they could bring up to 97%, which is really promising, right? So those are the areas we need to look into. And there are a lot of new technologies, groundbreaking technologies are coming up, like GPT-3, language processing models, which is super interesting. But what is very important is we are going to bring intelligent infused processes, but we have to pay attention to, if you're bringing AI, you have to be responsible, right? So it means responsible AI will also be a very interesting element, and we have to adhere to the standards. So that's how I see. There are technologies, get your data foundation straight, and you can bring magic to the world.
Yeah,
so,
all right. Yeah. They're going to go a bit further in the future. In a session earlier today, we heard that DORA will be live in 2 years. We had a session about that with the banking scene a few weeks back. And I know we agreed not to talk too much about regulation. However, I think this is not one we can ignore being at a FinTech event, talking about tech and resilience. My conclusion of that session, which was with EBA Clearing and an expert former operational risk manager, was that in the short term, it could harm a part of the FinTech industry because they have more regulation to adhere to. But in the longer term, we'll end up with a more resilient tech industry leading to a more resilient society. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
All right, next question.
Finished. No, absolutely. And DORA comes in as regulators around the world are looking to enhance the operational resilience of businesses. And this comes in as a defined legislative approach rather than principle and outcomes-based approach that other jurisdictions and regulators have taken. But yeah, in the short term, I think it really will cause issues and problems. And be that from having to look at contracts in relation to third-party providers and critical third-party providers, which up until now haven't been in the regulatory sphere of such regulation and the grips that they will find themselves under. Making sure that contracts are right, and in circumstances it will contract the amount of third-party providers that are out there, and potentially make the attack surface for criminals and actors shorter and smaller, and therefore potentially pose more problems. I think in the long run it absolutely will enhance resilience across the sector, across the region, and obviously within society. And one piece of that is that the penetration testing that will be employed through that. It will probably take the form of TIBER, so the threat intelligence-based ethical red teaming. That will only go to enhance the resilience of those players, not just within Europe, but around the world as well. So,
but the good thing, and that's a question, unprepared question maybe for Pascal, but the fact that there will be DORA and that everyone has, in a way, a more common language compared to today with compliance departments. I can imagine that having DORA in place as a fintech, it makes communication with financial services a lot easier as well. Will Neterium be impacted a lot by DORA? Is that an evaluation you already made?
No, not in compliance for the
moment. Yeah, okay. Ioana. I know we're already rather late in the debate, and we were moving forward in the future. Of course, we cannot ignore the whole DeFi, blockchain, and crypto phenomenon. We are right now, I would say, maybe in a cool down. Maybe not a winter yet, but still people are getting more doubts. Nevertheless, in my opinion, it's something for the better because it will mature the industry, and the cowboys will probably get out as there's more regulation coming up, etc., leading to a more resilient industry in that respect. Do you think it will take until 2025 to move from Web 2.0 to Web 3.0? What will be the main drivers for the future success of these technologies?
Thank you for the question. Great question. Great amalgamation of topics. And I actually do believe we are in a bear market. Full crypto winter. I'm not sure if we've reached bottom yet. I hope we have, but I'm not so sure. And I agree with you, actually. We need the cleanup. However, this is not just the crypto market that is affected. We're talking about a bear market across stocks and bonds, and we've seen what was happening to the UK gilts. I'm looking at you. I assume you're British by the accent. Okay,
I am, but it was nothing
I
to do
assume
with
correctly. So we saw what happened with the UK bond market just last week. And so it's because we have rate hikes, we have high inflation, that is probably going to go higher. We have the real prospect of a recession. So overall, the market is in turbulent parameters. Let's call it that to be euphemistic.
Financial market, you mean, in terms of finding capital to build the solutions?
The overall capital markets, I think, is in turmoil currently, and obviously, crypto as a risk-on asset is affected by it. But yeah, going back to, again, repeating myself, I do agree with what you were saying. What happens in the bear market normally, and especially in crypto, is that you have full focus on what still needs to be built, because let's not forget, it's an incipient ecosystem. We're not mature yet, so we need to build a lot, especially on the infrastructure side. So hopefully, throughout the bear market, we will keep on building and tackle those infrastructure elements, and there are quite a few when it comes to Metaverse and the Web3 and DeFi. I won't go into all of them now. But yeah, hopefully these will be solved or partially solved, and then we can end up onboarding more Web2 people and entities into Web3 and empower the user and the consumer, because that's the end goal of Web3 as a concept, let's call it that. In terms of time, you mentioned 2025. I think it might help to go back to the definitions and then figure out how we stratify them in time. But before that happens, not to ensure the audience doesn't get too lazy or bored, I want to hear someone from the audience define the metaverse. So obviously, you've heard the presentation, you've heard it referenced throughout various talks. Can someone define the metaverse in simplistic terms? I don't want any sophisticated definition. I just want to capture the understanding of the audience when it comes to this. Anyone?
If not, we can ask Syrah, her colleague, explain what the metaverse is.
No, but I want to know what the audience thinks. Please.
There you go.
Thank you for that. I agree to it. My definition is slightly different, and we haven't heard it today because my angle comes from an open metaverse perspective. So to what you were saying, so obviously there is an immersive angle to it, right? But I see the open metaverse as a virtual economy developed at the confluence of physical and digital. But where I differ is that I see this environment powered by crypto tokens, all sorts of currencies or tokens or NFTs as primary digital ownership tools, and orchestrated by decentralized autonomous organizations or other forms of decentralized coordination mechanics. Why do I think that's relevant? Because that's the ethos of Web3, to enable social coordination and an additional monetization layer that empowers the user and the creator. Thank you for taking a shot at it. I agree to part of it. And I'll go back to answering your question.
Exactly.
So, yeah, no, but I think it's important for people to understand, because we can come in here and throw concepts and definitions. It's important for people to understand what we are all about, right? Especially when it comes to
no, but that's probably also the biggest challenge for making it a success in the future. The understanding by the regular man on the street of what a metaverse is and what value they can get out of there.
Exactly.
So coming back to my question, what would be the main driver for success?
So going back to what I wanted to do was to go back through all of the web, like Web 1, Web 2, Web 3. So simplistically put, Web 1 was designed with the user in the center. However, because it was largely pushed by academia and governments, there were no clear monetization models that were designed. Then Web 2 came into force, and we have the plethora of Web 2 platform monopolies, as we call them, who figured out how to create monetization models. However, they left the content creators and the individual users out of the game. Web 3 brings a whole different perspective to the game, because we have in crypto actually devised the monetization models via decentralized technologies and crypto that would enable the user to benefit. So basically, we have everything come together in the most profitable way for the user and content creator on the internet. And I think Swash is a very good example of that, because Swash is an app that enables anyone who browses and who has previously downloaded Swash to have their data ethically pooled, aggregated with other data sets generated by other individuals. And then once that data sets are sold on a decentralized marketplace, part of the revenue goes back to the user. So I think it's the most simple example that I can give you in terms of understanding the power of Web3 and how it can benefit the user. Now, going back to time, I actually do believe that we won't have, because I don't think we will have a clear stratification in years in terms of moving from Web 2 to Web 3. I still believe that in 2025, we will live in a hybrid model like we do today. Yeah. Because I don't see all of the Web 2 entities transforming into a Web 3 entity, which is a decentralized movement, right? So currently, we do live in a hybrid environment powered by both Web 2 and Web 3. Obviously, Web 2 entities resort to Web 3 tools to have access to the metaverse, monetize on it, etc. But I still believe that progression will move in hybrid form. So I don't think, okay, 2025 or 2026, we'll all move to a Web 3 environment, and then who knows, Web 4, Web 5, etc. So the answer is, we are in a hybrid environment where we'll continue to be in a hybrid environment even a few years from now. along the line.
Interesting to remember that. I think that actually payment required is an HTTP message that was built in the HTTP version of Web 1 back in 1994. So I think that the issue of payment was thought of a long time ago. It was just not solved.
Not monetized correctly.
Before. And also, I think I recently saw something about people having built the basic protocols of the internet, which was like TCP/IP. These people were never compensated for that. So I think the big difference also, maybe in crypto, or call it Web3 if you want, is that the people building the base protocols of what will work tomorrow are going to be compensated. So that's the big difference, and I think it was a key to unlock that.
All right. Gaming is definitely one of the game changers that will probably make people adapt to a new digital reality. And I remember from our call where you shared that gaming is a gateway to cybercrime, David. Of course, if we go to a metaverse, if we go to this new world where everything becomes more digital, there are a lot more and new risks that people have to get used to, especially if you want to have that technology to build a resilient society. Means that people need to understand what the risks are. Can you share a bit more about that statement? Gaming is a gateway to cybercrime.
Yeah, and I think it's important to say out at the start that not all criminals are gamers and not all gamers are criminals. But gaming is a fantastic way to hone skills, to hone abilities, and what we have across every part of business is a lack of resource, a lack of talent. And going back to my previous years in law enforcement, so I was lead in the UK for preventing cybercrime, and that was all about education and making sure that people chose the right pathway to take. And the one thing that we saw and identified was individuals in the UK, mainly young people and young children, were coming to the attention of the National Police Force, and that was the first offence they'd ever done. The first thing they'd ever done was in front of the National Crime Agency. And that was a really important piece for us, because we identified that there wasn't a pathway into normal crime or traditional crime types. And we identified that this is down to parents, down to teachers, down to general society, not really knowing and understanding what children were doing, how to protect children, and basically bake in ethics into gaming and ethics into. West. Absolutely. We would teach our children not to break into a house, but nobody would say, don't DDoS that site. It's a bad thing to do. So gaming is a great way to hone skills, a great way to produce talent, and by baking in ethics at the start and introducing it through business, making sure that we do all that we can to put ethics in there, we can build a workforce for the future that works with us rather than against us. And I think that's a really important part for society to take hold of, particularly parents. I'm a parent myself, and teaching.
It gets quite complex knowing that gaming gets closer and closer to a simulation of day-to-day life in a way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Completely agree.
I actually disagree. I think gaming offers a possibility to reinvent yourself and test out things that you cannot do in your normal life.
Or play an alter ego.
Or a variety. No, it's a very good point. Or a variety of alter egos, because you can have multiple identities as an avatar, right? And I think it's normal, if we can say that, for gaming to attract nefarious characters. It's a 200 billion market value. It's probably one of the largest, well, it is the largest industry.
Absolutely.
So, and I think it's also going to be one of the biggest drivers to get us out of the crypto winter.
Yeah. Now, that brings me to Pascal. You have the onboarding solutions. Is that an area you're looking at already to avoid issues like that, where you have these alter egos and where you can start pretending being someone else, etc.?
Well, I think that's less the problem for us than the parallel economy that's created by definition by a game, because eventually a game, in gaming for now more than 20 years, games have been parallel economies, because they've always enabled people to buy for additional elements. I think that was a long time ago. I think Diablo 1 I think already had this.
Today they call it skins.
Yeah. And all these things, actually, if you think about it, create a parallel economy, because but then the difference with the past way of seeing this and the new way of seeing this through DeFi, through NFTs and things like that, is certainly that these things, if these assets becomes portable from game to game, then they have actual value. So then that means that they will open door not only to cybercrime, but also to money laundering, because obviously it might be the easiest way to to get your money out of the financial system or in the financial system. And I think that in that sense, of course, we have to look at that, because it's a trend that is being expanded exponentially.
Syrah, you worked on e-identity solutions in the past and perhaps still today, I don't know. How do you look at this issue and the evolution towards Web 3.0, given what we just heard? Because it's quite a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a great challenge, and in the last decades, we have been moving from centralized identity to federated identity, and then we also have user-centric identity, which is really benefiting from the network effect. You know, the Metcalfe law. We are talking about the network effect. It's proportion to the square of connected people. So that's why you see like France Connect, which is being done at the public sector, Facebook Connect, and this is user-centric identity. But now we have to think about decentralized identity. That's the biggest challenge what she was talking about. So Web 3.0 for me is really moving, in a very simple term, Internet of Information to Internet of Collaboration. That's a very simple term of definition. And then in this economy, there's going to be a space for digital assets, and there's going to be a space of digital work. And this means it's going to create a completely new economy transactions, which needs, which you have to make sure that your identity is privacy preserved. It's super important because it's going to be distributed everywhere. There is going to be a decentralized organization. You hear all these terms. So we believe that decentralized identity it's going to be disruptive, and it's going to enable privacy enhanced verifiable identity, which will enable you to exchange data and the information. What is very important here, it will be self-controlled. Self-controlled, so I'm using the word self-control. Yeah, that's good, that's good. I'm getting crowd, that's fantastic. So I like it. You give me extra bottle, right? Yeah, thank you so much. I think decentralized identity, if you... Oh, he's breaking.
They're already preparing it.
Exactly. Just to get my thoughts back again, so decentralized identity is very important, and it will help you to bring key attributes, which is really self-ownership, so you control your data, and censorship, resistance, which is not possible with your identity solutions today.
So is that also the element where you believe that this will make a person in society more resilient?
Yes, absolutely, because you're going to control what you're going to do, and you're going, with your identity, with your information sharing, you're the one in the middle. So there are a lot of things happening there, and there is a there is a lot of collaboration with partners, customers that's happening on decentralized identity implementation. As Microsoft, we are participating together with decentralized identity federations and W3C collaborative forums, and we are developing standards to bring it as an open source implementation, which is for me is a crucial one. And we have decentralized identity open source implementation, which is we are in the process of doing it. The main goal is to adopt on top of the public ledger as a physical layer 2 design. What we wanted to do is at scale, you bring it as a scale where you enable the ecosystem and partners to offer the services which will be in a decentralized market. So I think as Microsoft, we are really looking into this ecosystem and collaborating as well, so which is which will be a huge, a huge change in the market. And I think here in this room, there is a lot of fintechs out there because of the mobile first strategy. And I think this Web 3.0 is going to be a fundamentally will have an historical impact. I don't know how it will turn out, because that's a bit of what we're discussing, but it will be a phenomenal change and historical, I would believe so.
I think there's one thing we haven't spoken enough about, in my opinion. In Belgium, there's still 46% that is at risk of being digitally excluded, which is, for me, immense. Suppose we can overcome that challenge. And suppose that we can overcome the challenges that we just spoke about. We have a positive evolution towards that Web 3.0. We can have a trusted identity system to cover that. Ioana,
yes,
we are still waiting for the next big thing, which is likely, or maybe, quantum computing. Something we've been speaking about for many, many years. Still not there. But suppose it gets there. How will it impact the way we deal with technology today?
Before I answer that, I want to touch on what Pascal was saying to tell him that actually...
3 minutes left.
Yeah, I can do that. There's a very good report by Elliptic showcasing that actually the metaverse, gaming, and NFTs are not conduits for money laundering because of the specificity of an NFT, which is a scarce token and has a specific token design. So that's not happening. Plus, interoperability, intra-metaverse interoperability at scale does not exist yet. So we're okay on that front for now.
You're right. There's no money laundering in crypto. It's
another discussion for during the drink.
I'm not getting involved in that one.
Next year. So look, I don't think we've been talking about quantum computing for a while now. From a crypto perspective, right, which is the industry that I represent, the danger with quantum computing and quantum computers is that it breaks public key cryptography. Currently, there's no commercial quantum computer or publicly that can dent in the current encryption standards, right? So that currently there's no issue. There might be an issue in the future, and I think the issue is not what to do when quantum computer breaks the public key cryptography, because you can generate post-quantum encryption models. That's already been worked on. It's what happens with the transactions up to that point, because quantum computing affects digital signatures, which are extremely relevant for all consensus mechanisms within crypto, and also affects elliptic curve signature, which protects the private keys, right? So basically, if you own the public keys, you can access everyone's digital wallet and spend as you see fit. So these are big issues for the crypto industry. There are known issues. I think what needs to happen is for quantum computer experts to work in lockstep with crypto experts and figure this out, right? Like figure viable post-quantum encryption models and standards.
That's the thing, because you can talk as much as you want about the risks, but there are definitely also opportunities in quantum computing.
Of course, I mean, that's what every technological advancement brings opportunities and risks. For me, this is not the main thing, though. AI is the main thing, and not, well, some ethical element
Still far
to
in
it.
the future,
No, it is present. But I think what the worrisome thing is that we were talking about data and how its monetization doesn't benefit the user. Also, that data is being pulled into algos that are owned by Web 2 entities. So they're going to win that race as well, which is why I am extremely, extremely bullish on a variety of Web 3 projects that combine decentralized finance, NFTs, and decentralized AI. So basically, you can own and train your AI agent via an NFT. So that's the only chance we have to take control of some portion of the artificial intelligence, right? So that, to me, is the big, I don't know, game changer of the future. And the way we design user ownership on it is vital. I managed, more or less, right, to fit myself in 3 minutes.
We are running over time, which is very unfortunate, because it's a topic that's, I love to talk about more, but we can do that during the break as well. I'm going to give the word back to To now. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you.
I'm going to call the arsonists, the people that make the fire and that set the stage, because we have a fireside chat coming ahead of us. And you can start applauding for Alessandra, who has been also the organizer of this flawless event so far, and the whole team. So this deserves special applause. She'll get more later, but it's a good time. So Dave Remu, KPMG, and they are going to bring something of a fireside chat and a resume of the day.
Something
and
like
the fire is on.
Exactly. You were wondering the whole day why this screen was there. Now you know. Can I invite everyone in? Yeah, let's come in, just have a seat. So Dave, thank you so much for coming tonight. I have been asked, how we can summarize this day. Not an easy exercise, and because I couldn't be everywhere, running around as well. But I remembered that a few weeks ago, you invited me for an interview, a very interesting interview on the future of finance, how we saw it in 2030. So I thought, who better could talk about, future of finance, summarizing everything in a positive way than you and having this chat. So maybe you can start by explaining what the project is.
Thank you, Alessandra, and yeah, thank you for the honor of having with you this closing talk. The project is called 30 Voices on 2030. It's a project we're doing in collaboration with the financial sector, with the Financial Forum. The Financial Forum, as probably most of you know, was created 30 years ago in 1992 at the initiative of the Central Bank of Belgium and the financial industry. It was created to stimulate reflection, research, and debate about the financial industry with the larger audience, so including academia, but also reaching out to the general public. Every year they organize a series of keynotes, panel discussions, and so forth that are open to the general public to discuss current themes about the financial sector around innovation, regulation, economic topics, and so on. And so we have interviewed 30 key decision makers within the financial industry. Actually, I should say not just the financial industry, because we also included key executives from organizations such as Google, but we also reached out to the Ministry of Finance about how would they view the financial sector in 2030.
Okay, and so we're going to have a bit of a teasing tonight then. So what are the predictions? I mean, we have been talking about ESG, tech, personal data, and so on. Maybe you could start with ESG. What are the predictions on that respect?
Okay. We actually, when we look at the outcome of the interviews, we do see a general trend that also coincides with what we see in similar surveys in other countries. ESG definitely is the driver of change for the financial industry, and not just for the financial industry. We see that there's a huge expectation that ESG will drive innovation, and that end users, consumers, will actually want to see proof that ESG targets are met, and not just from a compliance perspective, but also from an authenticity point of view. So, do you really live the ESG targets you have set? So, do you show that in your actions, in the way you organize your processes, in the way you treat your employees, for example, how you deal with your suppliers, and for financial products, for example, to what extent do you reflect your concerns about the sustainable environment, about well-being of your customers and your employees? To what extent do you reflect that in the offerings that you give or roll out to the market?
So it won't be just green, diversity, and so on, but it's going to be about values and avoiding the greenwashing or ESG washing.
Exactly. It's really it's a question about authenticity, and I'm curious to see how the FinTech world or FinTech Belgium can actually help in that revolution.
So on our side, we have launched a year ago now Fire, which is an innovation hub, and we have, I would say, two roles on the ESG side. I would say what we've done today is to connect, collaborate, to innovate. And so we have created a space where people can actually meet and actually the corporates bring their challenges in our ecosystem, and what we're going to create is really a space where they can bring these challenges and bring together all the stakeholders that will be needed to help them with these challenges. We've seen today several of our members on stage. There's Pierre, Equity, but you have also seen in the exhibition hall Greenery and you name it. And by bringing the whole ecosystem together and connecting them is one of the things that FinTech Belgium tries to do. And another one is more, I would say, on the education and the inspiration side. So we have, as I said, like purely ESG fintechs, but also we can see that I will go back actually to the definition of fintechs. We represent 130 members, and all of them have signed a charter with us. We're talking about transparency, of course, being fintech, professional, and so on. But one of the values that is really important to fintechs is the fact that they put the customer at the center of the business model. And they are maybe smaller and more flexible, and they can do so. And thanks to that, if the customers are asking for more green, they are asking for more diversity and more values, the fintechs are, what we see is that the fintechs are actually organically changing their business models and their solutions. They are integrating new ESG solutions. We had today Rock Estate as well on stage. That is not an ESG company at the basis, but has now created these type of solutions. And so that's where, this space that we have created, this event that we have created today makes sense, and that's what we try to do. And maybe we can go on in the other topics that we touched today, like personal data.
Yeah, personal data is also definitely becoming more and more important, and especially in the sense of how do you give control to the owner of that data? I mean, you as a person, you do not want your own data to be, let's say, manipulated or being used for purposes that you do not agree with. So there's definitely the expectation that by 2030, decentralized or ownership of data will be more and more in the hands of the actual person or the individual.
And how does that coexist with one of the topics we saw today, which is open data?
Well, good point. And in that, well, it's a very delicate balance, because on the one hand, you want to have, let's say, hyper-personalized service, and you do appreciate that your data is being used if it adds to your convenience. On the other hand, well, if that balance is tilted too much, well, you definitely get angry, and yeah, the relationship with the bank or the insurance company or whatever the cooperation is damaged. So there definitely regulation can play a role, and Europe has taken a front-runner role with the introduction of GDPR. And towards the future, as we go more and more to an open data society, it's definitely also will increase further the need for regulation and dialogue across sectors.
And that's why also FinTech Belgium has launched 2 years ago EDFA, the European Digital Finance Association. You've certainly seen that room with the EDFA, and no one knew what it is. But basically, you can meet a lot of hubs that we have joined. So we were one of the founding members, and we created this association to work with the European Commission, to really, so we're working with the working groups and amongst others, and it's really to bring the customer understanding also to at this level of regulation, but also see where the industry stands, because regulation can indeed kill or help and be a catalyzer for innovation, but it can. But the industry is also driving the way, leading the way.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a very good initiative, Alessandra, because definitely also to do it at the European level, because some of the comments you hear about current regulation is that there is the European initiative, but there is still so many local, let's say, interpretations that make it difficult to scale at the European level, or that add extra costs. So the more we will have harmonization of regulation at the European level, the better.
Yeah.
Of course, there are certain local specificities that need to be taken into account, but we need to strive for a more uniform regulation.
A single market to be competitive.
Exactly. I mean, especially if the ambition is to have European unicorns or to have European fintechs that make their mark, then we need to have that open or that harmonized regulation.
There's the regulation. We're touching regulation about the what will lead us to this view of 2030 on open data, but it's also touching other industries, because we're talking about open banking, open finance, to open data. So we will need to build bridges with other industries, but we see it already happening with embedded finance.
Yeah, very much. And in fact, there is the expectation that financial services will become less a sector discussion, but will be more a capabilities discussion. So. With open finance or embedded banking, as you see it, financial services will permeate different sectors. So you can no longer say, look, it's only limited to banks or it's only limited to insurance companies. No, you need to look at the whole picture and where are those specific capabilities actually being deployed in other sectors.
We can already see it today with accounting tech, we could see also real estate with financing solutions and things like that. And but then, what will the role of the banks be?
Sorry?
What will the role of the banks be?
Yeah, difficult.
Can we have a teaser on that, or are you allowed?
Well, we will publish the report on the 30th of November. By coincidence, also a 30th. So there will be the financial forum at 6 o'clock in the evening. It will start on the 30th November. There will be the publication of the report. And there will also be a panel discussion with a number of players from the financial industry to have this open debate about, look, this is what the outcome was from the report. where are we now and how can we make it to the future?
Okay.
And definitely how can Belgium or Brussels as a financial center take a front-runner role?
Okay. I mean, you haven't answered my question, what will be the role of the bank? So will they still exist? Just that question. According to the predictions, huh?
Of course, I mean, we will be dominating Europe. No, I think, in all seriousness, when I look at the presentations, the agenda of the conference we've had so far here today, it all looks very promising. I mean, it's very vibrant community we have here in terms of fintech, but also in terms of the dialogue we see between the different actors.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the key element, to have that constant dialogue between the different stakeholders,
yeah.
not just fintechs, not just banks, not just regulators, but feed each other and yeah, continue that.
Okay, thank you. There's another topic that was touched just now. It's everything that is tech. And we can go very quickly because we're standing between you and you know, between the people and the audience and the drinks. Yeah, what do you see? What do the predictions say about AI and blockchain?
Well, the jury is still out about blockchain, and well, I think AI will certainly become more and more adopted. There's definitely the expectation that technology will help us to provide better financial services, and yeah, that it will contribute to society as a whole. On the other hand, we need to be mindful that the technology is fit for purpose. Mm-hmm. So that when using AI, it still serves, for example, the end objective of the consumer.
Yeah, customer centricity will be key. To avoid also dehumanization, for instance, exactly. With the looping bots and giving the decision power to AI. Yes, no, and to which extent can we overrule it and things like that. We can easily exclude. We were talking about inclusion. We can very quickly exclude actually people from the financial services. And another concern, and we're going to work on that as well with as FinTech Belgium, talking about it during the conferences and stuff, is also the digital fracture, because we are creating, if we want to avoid exclusion again, we need to decrease this gap, which is actually, I mean, we are all tech savvy, and it's not the case for us, but it is increasing. I was reading an article not long ago. Still, 1 house on 10 in Belgium hasn't got internet at home. And technology is there to facilitate, to make it easier. And it can also scare. And so we need to always keep this customer centricity. And that will be, I think, the challenge as well, to reach the nice environment that you just described for 2030.
Yeah, definitely.
And then the talent, of course, but I'm not going to go on that one. I think that it's a long, another long talk. So we can see the result on November the 30th.
Just a few more days.
Exactly. And but then I will thank you very much for this very nice fireside chat.
Thank you, Alessandra.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And I'm going to call on stage. We can maybe have the yes, it's the time of award ceremony. I don't have a clicker, so
it's laying over there.
It's
we'll improvise on this one too, right?
It's not improvised this year.
No, this is fully prepared. There we go.
So I'm going to call Jean-Christophe Vercouteren and Céline Sante on stage.
They deserve a big round of applause because I don't know if you've been on stage too, but they made a great, great job of animating this. Thank you very much. I'm going to just go back one. No. Here we go. So maybe you can tell us more on what happened today in that other room, and yeah, and then we will see who's won. I don't know, for the microphones, there is one here.
It's gonna work.
As well.
Yeah, this one works. Go ahead.
Yeah? Okay.
So today we saw 20 fintechs pitching in front of the jury members and the audience. 10 startups this morning, 10 scale-ups this afternoon, and they tried to show that they were worth of one of the 4 awards that needs to be granted. And I don't know if you want to add anything else?
Yeah, no,
it was really interesting.
Yeah, really interesting.
Yeah, just really interesting project. I wanted once again to thank the members of the jury for joining us today, and thanks all the pitchers because it's a difficult exercise. They had only 5 minutes to pitch a project and 5 minutes to answer all the questions from the jury and the public. It was really interesting discussions. So, anything else to add? No.
No, I would like to thank you all also. Indeed, it was, as every year, interesting to share insight. It's always a good atmosphere, and I think that we all enjoy seeing how all these new initiatives are disrupting the space.
How was the energy in that room?
Amazing.
No need for heating, right?
No. The room was full, actually.
Great.
So maybe we can go back to the slide so we can see we've had a really much bigger, actually, jury. And we split it into 2, morning and afternoon. And I leave you maybe, I don't know if the juries are here in the room, but if I can ask you to stand
everybody.
up.
If you were in a jury, this is your moment to stand out and stand up.
Yes, great.
Thank you for your time. Wine is coming your way later, after the ceremony.
And I think it's the time, to know who the winners are.
Okay, and the winner for the the winner.
I want to hear that more.
For the Startup Awards, round of applause.
Yes,
just
you can do.
Is.
That's long suspense.
Funvis.
Yeah. Can I please ask you to come?
If there's a team of Funvis, they can all come up front.
Start-up et bouteille.
Come over here, jump on here.
FinTech,
you can do your 30-second pitch now, because not the whole world knows what Funvis is. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, thanks, first of all, to the jury, to everybody else. Just to represent again, we're the one platform for the entire fund industry. So we help them to cooperate, communicate, and collaborate. So if you're setting up a fund or managing a fund in Luxembourg, hit us up. We're there for you. And reaching transparency and hopefully sustainable finance very soon. Thanks.
Congratulations.
Thank you for that. Congratulations.
I can't hear myself anymore, but here you go. And a bottle. That's Belgian as well. So let's take a picture. Congratulations.
More drums, more suspense.
Yeah, so the Scale Up Award goes to Upper Credit.
Congratulations.
We want to hear you shout while you come down.
You can't hear me. I'd like
He didn't
to
get that.
really,
Somebody else can shout.
That has been in our ecosystem for 6 years or something, and I'm really happy to be able to offer you this. Here you go. Come here. Come here. Thank you.
You will have to do your 30-second pitch, though. I'll hold that for you.
Well, yeah, so 2 years ago, we won the Startup awards. Now we win the scale up, so it's very nice. 2 years ago, I was doing it in a chalet in the mountains with a bad connection. So what do we do with Open Credits? We don't build skiing infrastructure, but we help to banks to make the mortgage experience a digital experience without paper, without PDFs, but fully digitized. And we do that with a white label solution today in 6 countries across Europe. And yeah, what's next now? An IPO?
Yes, but we don't
exactly.
have... No, yeah. The IPO award is given with a clock. We don't intervene in that one. I wish you one. All the best.
And the next one.
So the winner for the Coup de Cœur award of the jury is suspense.
Those drums.
Yeah. Livre P. Congratulations.
Livre P.
Nadim. Here you are.
Thank you very much.
Come here.
Get with the jury, the representatives of the jury, the coup de cœur. And again, I'm going to ask you, after this picture, to tell people what Livre P is all about.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the jury. Livre P is the first mobile app that makes real estate savings accessible to all. So right now, everyone in France can open an account at starting 100 euros against a return of 4 to 6%, no fees whatsoever, and the possibility for them to recover their funds. Their funds being invested in residential real estate in France, plus education, gamification that makes the whole thing very, very enjoyable. Thank you very much.
Congrats. Congratulations.
So the last prize is the price of... You haven't seen anything.
Didn't see that. You didn't see that.
Anything.
We want suspense. Suspense.
Just turn your head.
So
all will be fine. But you didn't
All
see that.
will be
Forget
fine. All will be fine. Yes.
And it's Be Fine. So Be Fine is the winner.
Congratulations.
Come on, guys.
Right in the back.
Isn't Be Fine in the room?
Yes, they're coming
they
down.
Are. Here we go.
Ah, okay.
I have to say, they came by bus this morning. They were 9, 10 today. Here you go.
Thank you.
Come here. Let's have a picture here. Oops. Congrats.
Bravo.
And yes, a little pitch again.
Oh, I will ask the same thing to you. We all saw your logo for blipping in, so that's some burn on people. What is Be Fine about?
Be Fine is about bringing new technology into the regulatory reporting industry for financial institutions. Thank you.
That was really elevator.
So there are startups that make money on this regulatory burden, right? So we have to thank the regulator for creating this whole industry of suppliers. So thank you very much if the National Bank or FSME are in here. You're doing a great job.
So we'll go back to the slides. So I'll take just one more minute just to explain to you that I mentioned it. We have launched Fire Innovation Hub. We organize a lot of things. We have the breakfast, so you're more than welcome to come in our hub. Whether you want to crash for a day, you're looking for a meeting room or an office as a FinTech, you're more than welcome in our hub. We organize breakfast, as you can see. We will be organizing a meetup, an InsurTech meetup on fraud prevention and detection. And beginning of December, we will be launching our Fire Acceleration Week. I will tell you more about this during the drinks afterwards if you're curious, but it all goes back to corporates bringing their challenges in the middle of our ecosystem and us playing as facilitator of innovation by bringing the whole, all the stakeholders that we need to tackle these challenges. So we will need fintechs, we will need techs, we will need everyone around the table, consulting, legal, and of course the corporates, banks and insurance will be in the middle of the whole exercise. So
we heard about failing fast in large corporations. If your companies are ready for that, we'd love to make you with those startups from our ecosystem.
Absolutely.
So that's what it's about, working together.
Thank you. Oh, no. I know that you're all waiting for this, so I'm not going to talk about that much more. I hope that you stay, because it's going to be great. It's going to be a ball. And I'd like to thank the partners. I know I say it very often, but we would not exist, we would not be able to do this because we are not funded by the government, by anyone else than these sponsors. So thank you so much, because without you, we wouldn't be here and it wouldn't have been such a great day. So thank you so much.
And these sponsors make sure that our tickets are not as expensive as some of the fancy events you go to abroad.
Yeah, and
so
that you
let's
had
thank them for
actually
that
other things that sandwiches as well.
Yeah.
So this, and I said that we're not funded, but we have the support from Hub Brussels as well, who enabled us to have an audience of 30% of international audience. Thanks to them, we have been able to organize delegations. So thank also to them. I'm not going to name them all. You can see them. And you've been able to also meet them in the exhibition hall, and I hope that you've had good contacts with everyone. So
I'll do part of your sales job. There's space for more logos on there. So those aspiring startups, scale-ups, when you hire a marketing profile, make sure some of that money goes our way too. Thank you.
Thank you, Toon. So yes, thank you very much. I'd like to take 2 more minutes of your time just to thank Toon. You have been an amazing MC, and I think that you deserve.
I'm gonna return that favor and thanks, because this is my, as said, this is actually our 7th year that we're organizing this thing. Time flies when you're having fun. And this, I dare to say, was the best edition we've had. So I don't know if you agree, but it's the moment that I'm gonna thank the organizing team. So first of all, Alessandra, your mother, Regina, your daughter, because this is a little bit of a family enterprise. Let them all come on stage. We have Xavier, I want him on stage, who has been in contact with all the speakers. We have Johanna, please come on stage too. If there are any interns, students who are not held back by any urgent task, this is your moment to come on stage as well. We have plenty of flowers that will come your way.
Thank you.
And I also want to chip in a very short word for the people in tech booth that you don't see on both sides, because it was a flawless event when it comes to tech. This is not something to be taken for granted. So round of applause for them too. Really great job. But especially here, wow, what an edition. Well done. I'll give you a mic, because you don't get flowers.
So
say something.
From laughing.
Okay.
So yeah, go for it.
I would like to thank all the speakers, because I spent hours to prepare the content with the speakers, and the content of this year. I don't know if you liked it, but
it was
I learned a lot. So thank you.
I would like to just introduce you, because you've certainly had heard about Efe, Shotaro, Utkarsh, our students.
Well done, guys. And there's interns. You didn't mention the interns yet. No? Extra ones, the students?
The volunteers.
The volunteers,
exactly.
yes.
And this is our team. And then we have also volunteers who came for the day. I don't know where they are. They can come.
At the door. I see some of them. Come on in.
Wow.
Come on stage. We want to thank you too. Everybody that contributed and made it such a nice event. So thank you very much. Great job. Thanks. You're all
It's a lot of work, and to make everything work clockwise, yeah, thanks to you all. So thank you so much. And I'd like to thank the technique. Hello, Romain. And I'd like to thank the technique, because seriously, you've been absolutely great. I can't applaud, so if you could do this for me. Thank you, guys. Am I forgetting anyone? I don't think so. So I think that now we can say safely, yes, you know what? There might be someone watching us from home who's Jean-Louis Vanau, the chairman of our board. He's doing an amazing job. I mean, we have a board of 10 people who are offering the time for free. They are doing an amazing job. Tone is part of them. I don't know if you are in the room, if you can stand up so that we can all see you. Joan, Mark, and so on. I don't know if you can see, if I can see you. Yes, Joan
just so
was
people
there.
know.
Bea, Patricia.
I will
Who else is in the
make
room?
one last
No one
comment.
else?
The board members are not paid, in case you're guessing that, wow, that must be a nice position, but we look for fresh blood.
There.
So if you like
There's Johannes behind
what
there
you
too.
see, please do talk to us, because we always are looking for new talent to join the boards. Thank you.
Exactly. And I know that Jean-Louis would have, it's his favorite moment of the day. And he's really sad to be at home, but he's really, really ill. So he's just gone back. He wasn't super ill, he just had no voice anymore, which is, for those who know him, a big handicap. So I'm not going to last longer, and I'm just going to invite you for a drink, for food, and great music. There's an amazing concert, so please stay and dance with us.
Party time! Woo!
Thank you.
See you next year. Bye-bye.